I was beat and disowned after being accused of having a girlfriend. Now that I am marrying a man, they want to reconnect. My husband, 28 male, and I, 27 female, are said to be married in January. On his side, his entire family is invited, while on mine, only my maternal aunt and her husband are attending. When my parents and the rest of my family discovered this, they made a big fuss and treated me horribly. However, I believe I am justified in not wanting them there on my special day. For some context, I was the first daughter, granddaughter, and niece of the family. I was everyone's special darling, that is, until the arrival of my siblings. When I turned 8, my little sister was born, and my grandparents, as well as my mother, stopped treating me like their child. The favoritism for my younger sister was extremely blatant. If my sister broke something, they never scolded her, but if I said something mean to my sister, I was punished. One time she even broke my glasses, but I was the one who got punished for it. As for my father, he was present for a while but then just disappeared. He was consistent with sending money but never with calls or visits. When I turned 11, I was actually closer to my maternal aunt, who lived miles away from me, than the family members I was forced to live with. That aunt, who is 9 years older than me, is my mother's half-sister, and although I only saw her on special occasions, we talked on the phone twice a day. When I was 12 and she was 21, I stayed with her all summer, even though my mom didn't believe my aunt could take care of me, and those were the best 2 months of my life. After my vacation, I studied more and had very good behavior at school, with the intention that they would let me go see her again. However, everything was ruined when my grades in mathematics began to decline. Although I tried hard, and my aunt gave me classes and even paid for a tutor, my grades didn't improve. That year my aunt visited me in the middle of the school year, and went with my mother to see what was happening at school. It was then, when my mother and aunt met with my teacher, that I was accused of not paying attention in class because, in my teacher's words, I was too busy being distracted by my girlfriend. My mother and aunt were amazed, and asked the teacher why he said that. The teacher argued that I was not normal, and that I was into girls. It was a religious school, so you can imagine how serious an accusation like that was. He claimed that one of my classmates was my supposed girlfriend, and that's why I was struggling to pay attention. My aunt made a fuss and threatened to sue them for discrimination, but my mother believed the teacher. When we got home, my mother beat me up and exposed me in front of the entire family, even though I was not romantically interested in other women, and that supposed girlfriend was just a normal friend of mine. My aunt intervened and confronted my mother, and it was then that my mother kicked me out of the house and told my aunt that if she loved me so much, then I should move in with her, because I was ashamed to my mother and would not be allowed here. My aunt didn't think twice and took me with her. She called my father and told him about the situation, and they both filed a complaint and made it clear that I would stay with her. My grandmother, who lived with my aunt, also disowned and disapproved of me for the same reasons my mother did. However, my aunt, who owned the house, kicked her out. From that day on, my aunt and her husband, who was just her boyfriend at the time, took care of me as if I were their own daughter. When I turned 15, my uncle legally adopted me. He paid for my university, and throughout that time he made sure I attended therapy. I must say that all this affected me too much, but the love he gave me helped me a lot. To me, I consider my aunt and uncle my real parents. Now that my relatives found out that I was going to marry a man, they came to apologize to me. And yes, I did accept their apology, but I did not want to have any contact with them. However, they believed that with the apology they were more than invited to my wedding. 2 weeks ago, my mother and grandmother came to my dress fitting without an invitation. I was totally outraged. They had not been invited, so I kicked them out, and in return they started insulting me and my husband. I told them that I didn't want them in my life, that I only excused them for mental health reasons, but they were nothing to me anymore. Despite all that, 3 days ago one of my dad's cousins called me asking about the dress code and if children were accepted. I told her that she, like all the other members of that family, were not invited. She was outraged, and a few minutes later my biological father called me, asking who would walk me down the aisle. I said that my uncle would do it, and he started swearing at me in 1,000 ways, so I simply cut off the call. Now am I really that bad? My aunt tells me that if I don't want those people at my wedding, she supports me, but my mother-in-law says that family is family, no matter what has happened. Update. It's been almost a month since my post, and I wanted to update you on some things that had happened. I told my mother-in-law everything that my family did to me in the past. At first she seemed understanding, but then my partner discovered that she was still communicating with my biological parents, and decided to cut ties with his mother. He warned her that if she continued with this attitude, she would never know her grandchildren. He also told her that the only way for her to be part of our lives again is to apologize to me and my aunt and uncle. He conveyed the same message to his father and brothers, stating that if they tried to intervene between his mother, my ex-family, and us, they too would be expelled from our lives, and the lives of our future children. One thing I didn't discuss was the topic of my biological father and sister. It turns out that after some time, he accepted that I wasn't going to be a part of his life, and he returned home to my biological mother and they had another child. As for my sister, she always believed that I lived with my father and I, on the other hand, always believed that my sister had a better life. However, I found out everything she had suffered in my absence. My ex-family mistreated her day and night. She was practically kidnapped and couldn't even use the phone or social networks, even though she is now of age. When we found out about all this, we decided to go for my sister. I must say that it was not the best way, but we followed her until we found her university. There we approached her and asked her to accompany us. She was very happy to see us, and agreed to come with us. Together we unburdened ourselves about everything. We apologized and told each other everything, realizing that we were both victims of our parents. Now, my uncle is fighting for custody of my little brother. With my sister's testimony in mind, we hope to achieve it. We are also taking my sister to therapy, to help her with all the trauma. Because of my wedding, we decided to move everything forward and have a small ceremony. We didn't tell anyone, so we had no surprise visitors, and it went well. Thank you all for your advice and support.